The city lights of Seattle blurred past my windshield, a kaleidoscope of neon dreams and rain-slicked streets. But all I could hear was his voice low. "Velvet. Dangerous. You free tonight?" Those 3 words, whispered in the shadowed corner of a corporate gala, had unraveled my world. Now, as dawn crept through the blinds of a penthouse I didn't recognize, I woke to the sting of bite marks on my shoulder and the weight of a secret that could destroy us both. My name is Ezra Torres, a 24-year-old barista scraping by in a city that chews up dreamers like me. I wasn't supposed to be here, tangled in silk sheets that smelled faintly of cedar and ambition. My life was small espresso shots, late-night sketches, and a studio apartment with a leaky faucet. But last night, I'd crossed a line, and the man beside me, still asleep, was no ordinary stranger. He was Julian Whitmore, the untouchable son of Whitmore Enterprises chairman, a golden boy with a smile that could charm a snake and a reputation for breaking hearts. It started at the gala, a glitzy affair at the top of the Columbia Center. I was there as hired help, pouring overpriced champagne for Seattle's elite, my thrift store tie itching against my neck. Julian stood out like a beacon, his tailored suit hugging a frame that screamed privilege, his hazel eyes scanning the room with a boredom that felt practiced. I'd seen him before on magazine covers, in tabloid headlines, always with a different model or heiress on his arm. Untouchable. Unattainable. Yet, when our eyes met across the crowded ballroom, something shifted. He didn't look away. "You're not like them," he'd said later, cornering me by the service elevator. His breath was warm, tinged with whiskey, and his gaze pinned me in place. "You've got this. Fire. Like you're hiding something." I laughed it off, muttering something about coffee stains and long shifts. But my heart was a traitor, hammering loud enough to drown out reason. He leaned closer, his lips brushing my ear. "You free tonight?" It wasn't a question, it was a dare. I should have said no. I knew the rumors about Julian, reckless, ruthless, a man who played with people like pawns. But there was something in his voice, a crack in the polished facade, that made me wonder if he was as lost as I was. So I followed him out of the gala, into his sleek black car, and up to this penthouse where the city sprawled below like a glittering promise. We didn't talk much. Words gave way to hands, to heat, to the kind of night that leaves marks literal and otherwise. Now, as I traced the red welts on my skin, panic clawed at my chest. This wasn't just a fling. Julian's father, Richard Whitmore, was a titan, a man whose conservative empire bankrolled anti-LGBT campaigns while preaching family values. If anyone found out his son was in bed with a nobody like me, the fallout would be catastrophic. For Julian, it'd mean disinheritance, disgrace. For me, I didn't even want to think about it. The sheets rustled, and Julian stirred, his eyes fluttering open. Up close, he was even more disarming hair mussed, a faint scar curving above his eyebrow, a vulnerability that didn't match the tabloid version of him. "Morning," he murmured, voice rough with sleep. His hand reached for mine, but I pulled back, the weight of reality crashing in. "Julian, what the hell was last night?" My voice trembled, betraying the calm I was trying to fake. This can't happen. Your father. Forget my father." He cut in, sitting up. The sheet slipped, revealing a chest sculpted by privilege and gym memberships. "Last night was real. Ezra. You felt it too." I did. God help me. I did. But feeling something doesn't make it safe. "You don't get it," I said, swinging my legs out of bed, searching for my clothes. "I'm nobody. You're you. This is a scandal waiting to happen." He grabbed my wrist, gentle but firm. "You think I care about scandals? I'm sick of living in his shadow, pretending to be someone I'm not. His eyes burned with something raw, something that made my resolve waver. Stay? Please. I wanted to. Every fiber of me screamed to stay, to lean into this reckless, beautiful thing. But the world outside this penthouse wasn't kind to people like us. I'd grown up in a small town, where faggot was a word hurled like a fist, where my first kiss with a boy ended in a black eye and a bus ticket out. Julian might have money, but even he couldn't buy his way out of his father's reach. Ezra, he said, softer now. I've spent my life playing by their rules. Last night was the first time I felt free. His thumb brushed my knuckles, and I hated how much I wanted to believe him. But freedom comes at a cost, and I wasn't sure either of us could pay it. I pulled away, grabbing my jacket from the floor. I need to think. Julian. It's too much. He didn't stop me as I left, but his silence followed me into the elevator, heavy as regret. Back in my cramped apartment, the city's hum felt suffocating. My phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Meet me tonight. Same place. 9 p.m. I stared at it, torn between fear and longing. The gala was a one-off job, but Julian wasn't. He was a storm, and I was already caught in it. That evening, I found myself back at the Columbia Center, not as a server, but as a guester at least, someone pretending to be. Julian was waiting in a quiet corner of the rooftop bar, his suit traded for a black sweater that made him look less like an heir and more like a man I could actually know. You came, he said, a smile breaking through the tension. Didn't have much choice. I lied, sliding into the seat across from him. The truth was, I couldn't stay away. Not from him. We talked for hours about my sketches, his pressure cooker life, the way we both felt like outsiders in our own worlds. He told me about his mother, who'd left when he was 10, and the father who'd molded him into a perfect son while ignoring who he really was. I told him about the small-town kid who'd dreamed of art school but ended up pouring coffee to survive. It was easy, too easy, to forget the stakes. Then he leaned across the table, his hand finding mine under the dim lights. I don't want to hide, Ezra. Not with you. His voice was steady, but his eyes were a plea. I wanted to say yes, to dive headfirst into this, but the weight of his last name pressed against my chest. Julian, your father's empire is built on hating people like us, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. If he finds out, he won't, Julian interrupted, his grip tightening. Not yet. We'll be careful. Careful. The word felt like a lie even as he said it. But before I could argue, his lips were on mine, soft and urgent, and the world fell away. For a moment, it was just us two people stealing a slice of freedom in a city that didn't care. But freedom, I'd learn, is never free. The next few weeks were a fever dream. Julian and I carved out stolen moments late night, drives along Puget Sound. Secret meetings in dive bars where no one knew his name. Quiet mornings in his penthouse where the world felt far away. Each touch, each whispered promise, pulled me deeper into something I couldn't name. Love, maybe. Or madness. But every time I saw his name light up my phone, my heart raced like it was trying to outrun reality. We were careful, or so we thought. We avoided his father's circles, stuck to shadows, kept our distance in public. But Seattle wasn't as big as it seemed, and eyes were everywhere. One night, as we slipped out of a dimly lit jazz club, a flash went off a camera, too quick to dodge. Julian's face hardened, but he brushed it off. Paparazzi, he said, forcing a laugh. They're always sniffing around. I wasn't so sure. The next morning, a grainy photo hit the tabloids, Julian Whitmore with Mystery Man. No names, No details, just enough to stir whispers. My stomach churned as I scrolled through the comments. Online speculation. Slurs. The kind of venom that reminded me why I'd left my hometown. Julian texted me, "Don't worry. It's nothing." But I could feel the noose tightening. At work, the coffee shop felt like a cage. My coworker, Lena, a nosy grad student with a knack for gossip, slid a magazine across the counter. "This you?" she asked, pointing to the blurred figure next to Julian. I mumbled something about bad lighting and changed the subject, but her smirk lingered. If she suspected, others would too. That night, I met Julian at a park near Lake Washington, far from the city's prying eyes. He looked rattled, his usual confidence fraying at the edges. "My father called," he said, kicking a pebble into the grass. He saw the photo. Asked if I was slipping. Slipping? I echoed, my voice sharp. What does that even mean? Julian sighed, running a hand through his hair. It means he's watching me. Always has. He thinks I'm weak, that I'll ruin his legacy. He turned to me, his eyes searching. Ezra, I don't care what he thinks. Not anymore. But I need you to be in this with me. I wanted to be. God, I wanted to. But the weight of his world was crushing. Julian, I'm not like you. I don't have money or power to shield me. If this blows up, I'm the one who gets burned. He stepped closer, his hands framing my face. I won't let that happen, he promised, his voice fierce. I'll protect you. His kiss was desperate, a plea wrapped in heat, and for a moment, I believed him. But promises, I'd learned, were fragile things. The next day, I got a call from an unknown number. A man's voice, cold and clipped, introduced himself as Richard Whitmore's assistant. Mr. Torres, we'd like to meet. Tomorrow, 10 a.m. Whitmore Enterprises. My blood ran cold. Julian had warned me about his father's reach, but this was different. This was a summons. I told Julian, expecting him to panic, but he just clenched his jaw. Don't go, he said. He's trying to scare you. I can't just ignore him. I shot back. He's your father. He could ruin me. Julian's eyes darkened. He doesn't own me, Ezra. And he doesn't own you. But his words felt hollow. Richard Whitmore didn't need to own anyone, controlled them anyway. The meeting was in a glass-walled office that screamed power. Richard was older than I'd expected, his silver hair and sharp suit masking a predator's edge. He didn't waste time. Mr. Torres, he said, leaning back in his chair. You're a distraction. My son has responsibilities, a legacy to uphold. You're not part of that. I swallowed hard, my hands clenching in my lap. I'm not trying to. I don't care what you're trying to do. He cut in. End it, or I'll make sure you regret it. His smile was a blade, cold and precise. You're a barista. Yes. Easy enough to make sure you never work in this city again. I left the office shaking, rage and fear warring in my chest. Julian was waiting outside, his face pale. What did he say? He demanded. I couldn't look at him. He wants me gone, Julian. And he'll make it happen. Julian grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to meet his gaze. He doesn't get to decide this. We do. But his voice cracked, and I saw the truth. He was scared too. Not just of his father, but of losing me. That night, we fought our first real fight. I accused him of being naive, of thinking his privilege could protect us. He accused me of running, of not trusting him. The words cut deep, and when I stormed out, The rain-soaked streets mirrored the storm in my head. I wanted to believe we could fight this. But Richard Whitmore wasn't just a manha, was a machine. And we were cogs in his way. The days that followed were a blur of paranoia. I kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, for a pink slip at work, a landlord's notice, or worse, a headline that would strip us bare. Julian and I still met. But the ease was gone, replaced by a tension that clung like damp air. Every touch felt stolen, every glance a risk. Yet, I couldn't let him go. He was the one thing that made sense in a world that didn't. One evening, Julian showed up at my apartment unannounced, his face drawn. "I found something," he said, pulling out a flash drive. "My father's been hiding money offshore accounts. Shady deals. If we expose him, he loses his leverage." I stared at him, my heart pounding. "You're talking about taking down your own father." "He's not my father," Julian snapped, his voice raw. "He's a bully who's been controlling me my whole life. This ends now." The plan was reckless. Leak the files to a journalist friend of Julian's, someone outside his father's reach. But the risks were astronomical. If it backfired, we'd be painting targets on our backs. I wanted to say no, to beg him to walk away. But the fire in his eyes stopped me. This wasn't just about it was about Julian breaking free. We spent nights poring over the files, hidden in a cheap motel on the city's edge. The documents were damning: tax evasion, bribes, connections to politicians who'd pushed his anti-LGBT agenda. Julian's hands shook as he read, his anger a living thing. "He's been lying to everyone," he whispered. "Even me." I reached for him, my fingers tracing the scar above his eyebrow. "We don't have to do this," I said. "We could just leave. Start over somewhere else." He shook his head, his jaw tight. "Running's not freedom, Ezra. I want to live without looking over my shoulder. Don't you?" I did. More than anything. So I nodded, and we sealed the plan with a kiss that tasted like defiance. The leak went out on a Friday, a bombshell that hit every major outlet by morning. Whitmore Enterprises embroiled in financial scandal. Julian's name wasn't mentioned, but the fallout was immediate. Richard called him, screaming through the phone, but Julian hung up, his face pale but resolute. "It's done," he said, pulling me close. "We're free." But we weren't. That night, as we left the motel, a black SUV trailed us. I caught it in the rearview mirror, its headlights like predator's eyes. "Julian," I said, my voice tight, "we're being followed." He cursed, his hand gripping mine. "Keep driving. Don't stop." We wove through Seattle's back streets, my heart slamming against my ribs. The SUV stayed close, relentless. Finally, we lost it in a maze of alleys, but the fear lingered. "They know," I said, pulling over in a deserted lot. "Your father knows it was you." Julian's face was grim. "Then we fight harder." The next day, the journalist, a sharp-eyed woman named Claire, met us in a crowded diner. She dug deeper, found more dirt enough to bury Richard for good. But she warned us, he's not going down quietly. Watch your backs. That night, Julian and I holed up in his penthouse, the city glittering below like a trap. We didn't sleep. Instead, we talked about dreams we'd buried, lives we wanted. He wanted to travel, to see the world without his father's shadow. I wanted to draw, to create something real. For the first time, we let ourselves imagine a future. But futures are fragile. At dawn, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "You're next." Attached was a photo of me, taken outside the diner. My blood turned to ice. Julian, I whispered, showing him the screen. His face went white, but he pulled me into his arms. His voice steady. We're in this together. No matter what. I wanted to believe him. But as the city woke up, I couldn't shake the feeling that we'd lit a match in a room full of gasoline. The threat hung over us like a storm cloud, but Julian refused to back down. We've got the truth on our side, he said, his voice fierce. That's enough. I wasn't so sure. Truth doesn't stop bullets. And Richard Whitmore wasn't a man who played fair. We went underground, crashing with Claire in a cramped safe house on the outskirts of Seattle. She'd become our ally, feeding us updates as the scandal grew. Protests erupted outside Whitmore Enterprises, demanding Richard's resignation. The media frenzy was relentless, but so was he. Private investigators, hushed threats, whispers of lawsuits. Richard was fighting back with everything he had. One night, Claire got a tip. Richard was planning a press conference to clear his name. Julian's eyes lit up. This is our chance, he said. We go public. Tell the world who we are, what we mean to each other. He can't touch us if everyone's watching. I froze. Going public meant no more hiding, no more shadows. It meant exposing ourselves to a world that might tear us apart. But Julian's hand found mine, his touch grounding me. I love you, Ezra, he said, the words raw and real. I'm done pretending. I'd never heard those words before, not from him, not from anyone. They cracked something open inside me, a hope I'd buried long ago. I love you too, I whispered, and for the first time, I let myself believe we could win. The press conference was chaos, cameras flashing, reporters shouting, Richard at the podium with his polished lies. Julian and I slipped in, hearts pounding, our hands clasped under a borrowed coat. When Richard started his speech, blaming disgruntled employees for the leak, Julian stood. Enough, he said, his voice cutting through the noise. The room went silent. I'm Julian Whitmore, and I leaked the files. Because my father's a liar, a hypocrite who's hurt countless people to protect his empire. Gasps rippled through the crowd. I stepped forward, my voice shaking but steady. And I'm Ezra Torres. I'm with Julian. We're not ashamed, and we're not hiding anymore. The cameras exploded, questions flying like shrapnel. Richard's face was a mask of fury, but he couldn't stop us. Not now. We left hand in hand, the world watching, our truth laid bare. The fallout was brutal. Richard disowned Julian, cut him off without a cent. The tabloids feasted, some calling us heroes, others vultures. My job at the coffee shop vanished, Lena's gossip finally doing me in. But for every door that closed, another opened. Claire's articles kept the pressure on, and Richard's empire began to crumble. Lawsuits piled up, and whispers of indictments followed. Julian and I moved to a small apartment in Portland, far from Seattle's glare. It wasn't easy, money was tight, and the world wasn't kind. But we had each other. We'd wake to morning light, his arms around me, and for the first time, I felt like I belonged. I started drawing again, sketches of us, of the life we were building. Julian got a job at a nonprofit, helping kids like the ones we'd been lost, scared, but full of fight. One night, as we sat on our tiny balcony, the stars above us, Julian traced the faded bite marks on my shoulder. Worth it? He asked, his voice soft. I smiled, leaning into him. Every second. We paid a price, family, security, the lives we'd known. But we'd gained something better, freedom, love, a chance to be ourselves. The world wasn't perfect, but it was ours. And that was enough.